Our story begins thousands of years ago, deep in the Amazon rainforest. The ancient legends say that the first instructions to make the ayahuasca brew came from the plant spirits themselves, who guided the Native American shamans to gather two particular plants together and combine them into a thick brew. Upon drinking this murky concoction, the shaman would then experience a transcendent perception of reality for the next 4 to 8 hours. A heightened level of sensitivity and connection to all things would overtake them, and they would have visions of geometric patterns, spirits, or supernatural formations that would unfold in the mind's eye. In this experience, they would even receive wisdom and guidance from beyond the veil. From here, the shaman would then use this heightened awareness to learn and gain knowledge of the world, and use this to guide their people so that the whole collective could thrive together in their little pocket of early civilization. To many in the world today, the story of ayahuasca's origin may seem rather far-fetched, because for the story to be true, we have to accept both that plants have souls and can communicate with people. Then again, there are over 80,000 species of plants in the Amazon rainforest alone. So how is it that these ancient people came upon such an unlikely combination to produce such a remarkable brew? Today, one of the most incredible mysteries in the world is the unique and mystical experience of ayahuasca. Growing to be known for its powerful role it can play in helping to overcome disease, addiction, depression, and anxiety, it's no wonder that in today's world, which is ever struggling with its varieties of sicknesses, so many are turning to shamanic plant medicines to see if it can be the answer they are looking for. But wait, hold up. We might be getting ahead of ourselves here. What exactly is this ayahuasca stuff anyways? Let's start with the basics. Ayahuasca is a brew, like a thick soupy drink created primarily from two plants, the leaves of the Psychotria viridis and the vine of the Banisteriopsis caapi. The Psychotria plant contains a large amount of DMT, a molecule produced by our brains in small amounts when we're dreaming, and in larger amounts both when we're born and when we die. This molecule is also found in nature, but generally has no effect on the human body when consumed. This is because our body breaks down the molecule with an enzyme called monoamine oxidase, commonly called an MAO. However, the vine of the caapi plant contains an MAO inhibitor, which allows the DMT of the Psychotria plant to pass through the stomach and into our bloodstream. When it reaches the brain, it causes an activation of the pineal gland, producing a state like lucid dreaming, except you don't have to be asleep in the slightest. This is, in a nutshell, the essential science behind what's happening with these ayahuasca journeys. However, the actual experience itself is something else entirely to behold. Ayahuasca is often described as a concentrated dose of nature, designed to help us reconnect with ourselves and the natural world. It illuminates one's consciousness, aiding any seeker to look deeper into themselves at the source of their trauma, disease, and pain, and helps them in healing these ailments from its source. From this state, we also then learn to perceive reality at deeper, more fundamental levels, and ayahuasca even helps in letting go of the personal identification with modern cultural and social systems in which so many of us have become trapped. It is for this reason that ayahuasca, along with its brother and sister plant medicines such as iboga and peyote, have become known today as sacred plant medicines, as well as great teacher plants. While many modern medicines today treat illnesses, depression, and the like on a symptom-based level, these master plants go deeper and allow anyone to dive to the root of their challenges and solve them for good. Illness, addiction, depression, and the like all fade away when our consciousness is illuminated, shining bright on the subconscious ego that is damaging us without even knowing it. What I personally find especially remarkable about ayahuasca is that once you experience it, the concept of the human soul your own spirit becomes very conceivable and directly experienceable. And it opens up a space of curiosity within you to try and understand it deeper. Of course, it's critical to note that this experience of ayahuasca only comes out when there is an intention to match it. For anyone who is familiar with the medicine today, it is well understood that these experiences are to be treated as sacred and with great reverence. It's very important to use it properly because ayahuasca opens us up to a dream state of connection with the world. And without the supportive energy of a shaman, it's very possible to become lost in the journey, which could even be damaging to the psyche. This is not to suggest that ayahuasca is inherently dangerous. No more than a hammer can be used to either build a house or smash a window. But truly, this medicine helps to teach us to understand that intention steers the reality you experience. Going into an ayahuasca journey with the intention of creating healing versus going in with the intention of just having a party will yield two very different experiences. Today, with thousands of testimonials of people having tried ayahuasca emerging all over the world, the results seem to demonstrate that this sacred brew can provide us with an experience of self-discovery, spiritual reconnection, and a healing of our hearts, provided that we use it in the right way. To many, the ayahuasca experience sounds too good to be true. A magical plant drink that cures anxiety, disease, addiction, and improves overall quality of life across the board? Is this even possible? In this very movie, we're going to find out. Sit back, relax, and journey with me today to Costa Rica and see for yourself what happens when someone participates in a plant medicine ceremony. Now, when I arrive in Costa Rica, there's going to be so many amazing people to meet, I'm certain of it. But to make things interesting, I've invited my friend John to come along for the ride. We've been friends since we were only 11 years old, and he thought it sounded like a wonderful experience. So before departing, I invited him to the Spirit Science office, and we filmed some preliminary interviews for this adventure.
Well, I've only done mushrooms before, and I've gone camping and done them as a teenager, and also out at the cabin with some friends. We'll do that probably every summer, and then with you, we've done our ceremony before, and I found them to be really fun, and they very mind-opening experience, and they make my mind really wander.
The first psychedelic I actually really took was LSD on 11/11 of 2011. And that opened my eyes to so much more than I was ever really aware of. And it quickly just became like, I was like, okay, I have to try them all now. over the course of the years, I've had, several ceremonies, some with LSD, some with mushrooms, peyote and San Pedro. And it wasn't until Rhythmia until I tried ayahuasca. I want to evolve to the highest possible level that I can. Using the ayahuasca journey in this way will really help when I come back to this world and go to make more videos and go to do the work that I do in my daily life. And I really want to be able to take and absorb or learn as much as I possibly can so that I can bring that back to the world. Evolution, I think, is at the forefront of my mind in that regard.
I'm looking for self-reflection and I'm going at it with an open mind. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna experience, but I know it'll be something magical, change my perception, come back a different person. Maybe a little bit different, we'll see. I'm sure, mushrooms for the first time, I imagined one thing and it was completely different. So I kind of think this will be the same way. I'll maybe have some imagination, my mind will start to wander and try and figure out what it is. But I imagine once I actually, have the ayahuasca, it'll be a totally different experience than I imagined. So I don't know what to expect, but that's okay. I think that's exciting. Let's go on an adventure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The destination of our journey today is a place called Rhythmia. You might have heard of it. It's been growing in popularity the last few years with an endless stream of miraculous healing stories coming out of it. The whole space is beautiful, designed from the ground up and the top down to facilitate a deep, transcendent healing experience for anyone who goes there. Rhythmia features workshops, organic buffets, massages, colonic cleanses, the works. But of course, All of this is designed around these 4 potent ayahuasca ceremonies, each honoring a different tradition from different parts of Central and South America. When we first arrived, we went to the orientation workshop on Monday morning, and it was here that we got to meet Rhythmia's founder, Gerard Powell, though everyone just calls him Jerry. He begins the class with an introduction and tells us the story of Rhythmia. For most of his life, Jerry was a pretty mean guy. He struggled with some really nasty addictions and was cruel to everyone that he knew. There was even a time when he acknowledged his struggles and tried to correct his attitude towards the world. But despite getting help from world-class psychologists, nothing seemed to make a difference. Then everything changed when he was invited to Costa Rica to try a plant medicine called Iboga. Iboga is another entheogenic plant medicine native to Central and South America, though it's worth noting that it's a very different experience than ayahuasca. Upon arriving at that retreat, Jerry was filled with doubts about this helping him at all. The shaman had him write down several of the most important questions he'd like to have answered, but even as he wrote them down, thoughts of leaving filled his mind. But before he could get a chance to duck out, his shaman invited him to take the medicine. Jerry looked at the shaman, looked at the medicine, and took it straight away. Then he followed the shaman's instructions to lay down and put on a blindfold. Once he acknowledged he was seeing visions, the shaman sat by his head and began tapping on Jerry's forehead. He spoke in a calm voice. "Jerry man, tell me when you see my finger." Jerry began to respond, "That's ridiculous. I'm wearing a blindfold. How could I possibly see your All of a sudden, he could see the shaman's finger tapping on his head. His hands shot up to his blindfold and was even more amazed to realize that it was still fully there, covering his eyes. I see it," Jerry responded, confused, and the shaman said, "Take a look at the ceiling." Jerry saw the ceiling of the temple through the blindfold, and the shaman commanded him, "Make it disappear." Within moments, Jerry watched as the ceiling vanished, and soon all that he could see were the stars in the night sky. "Pick a star and jump to it," the shaman instructed, and Jerry soon found himself leaving his body, shooting through the sky, flying into outer space. He heard the shaman again, "Can you see the moon?" Jerry turned and saw the moon. "Fly to the moon." Following the shaman's instructions, Jerry shot towards the moon until everything went black. A television screen appeared in his inner vision, one of those really old school TVs. It turned on and he saw 2 things. One was a text cursor, looking like an old MS-DOS screen. On the other side, he saw an image of the moon with 2 little feet sticking out of it. They were his feet, he realized, and after flying to the moon, he had actually shot straight into it and got stuck inside. "Hi, Jerry," the cursor typed. This gave him chills, and he soon discovered that he was talking to the spirit of the moon. Jerry learned that the moon could help him understand why he was so cruel, but he'd have to go and find his soul first, and so off he went. His soul appeared as a child version of himself and took adult Jerry on a journey through his past and showed him the roots of his cruelty today. As a young child, Jerry had suffered a horrifying abuse at the hand of a family member. The impact that it had on him was so intense that it disconnected him from the world and himself. This caused his heart to sour and then rot. His soul then guided him to face those responsible for his childhood trauma and to forgive them. This very act set the stage for everything to come because the forgiveness itself liberated Jerry from the pain of his past. After this experience, he was able to return to the moon. As he landed, he saw that the TV was there, along with a pair of hands. His shaman guided him to ask the moon for help. She pointed at his chest, and he knew he had to pull it open, and he pulled out his own heart. It was black and dead. Once again, the shaman guided Jerry to ask the moon for help, and she put her hands together and produced for him a new heart. He put it in his chest and closed it up. The moon typed, "I'll be seeing you, Jerry." And he said, "Okay," flying off back to his body. When he returned to the physical dimension, his shaman pulled off his blindfold and looked at him with a big goofy smile and said, "Happy birthday, man." And so Jerry received a new heart, and for the first time since he was a boy, genuinely felt love inside. The next morning, he was a changed man, and he found himself acting differently than ever before. Normally, he wouldn't care about anyone around him, but he suddenly found himself talking to the other people at the retreat, learning their stories. He was amazed by the miraculous change that he'd experienced in just one night. Over the next year, Jerry did countless ceremonies. He tried the various shamanic plant medicines from peyote to ayahuasca, and through his experiences, he came to understand who he was and saw the bigger picture of the human story. Jerry was guided by the moon to abandon his existing business plans and to do something meaningful with his life. He would become an instrument of healing and was guided to create a space that would provide the highest quality of healing ceremonies he could and help raise awareness about the value of shamanic plant medicines. The moon told him where he would find the land to do it, what it would be called, and what it would look like. She also said that the best medicine to work with in a group setting would be the ayahuasca brew, and so this became the plant medicine for the space. All of the instructions flooded into his mind, and when he came out of his ceremonies, he went to work. Following the moon's guidance, he sold all of his worldly possessions and poured the resources he had into buying the land and building the place that would one day become the spiritual nexus called Rhythmia.
What I love about Rhythmia most of all is that it's a fusion, this beautiful fusion of this old shamanic tradition that goes back for thousands of years, fused with a modern, luxurious setting. You get to have the organic, all-you-can-eat buffet, the very wonderful accommodations for your room where you sleep in, and then you get to have this very traditional shamanic ayahuasca ceremony that is just, it takes you back, and the majesty of the jungle and everything just takes you to this place of transcendent beauty and awe. And then when you finally come back, it's like you're not so far removed from the world that you came from. It definitely is a nice balance for anybody who's just sort of wanting to jump in but maybe isn't quite ready to like go as deep as you can into the jungle. And so it's a really good first step in that regard, and I really honor and respect what they've done with that space and that energy. It's absolutely beautiful.
I think was the second question I ever asked the moon was I asked her, what's the secret to happiness? And she typed out the word truth. And she typed it 1,000 times if she typed it once, all in a nanosecond. And at the end, like down this whole page, the last word was the word authenticity. And I read it and I said to her, I said, well, how do I become more authentic? And she said, stop shining a light on the things that you're not.
Going through an ayahuasca journey isn't always easy, but at Rhythmia, Jerry, the shamans, and the whole staff go above and beyond in supporting and preparing everyone for their journey and transformation. During his orientation, Jerry gives everyone an explanation of how an ayahuasca experience works. He describes that there are 4 main types of journeys. The first kind is called a body journey. Essentially, the medicine goes into your body and will identify what blockages are within you that stop you from fulfilling your healing intention. Then, it will help you remove those blockages through a process called purging. Now don't worry, purging is not as scary as it sounds. It's a very natural part of the ayahuasca experience where we release old, stagnant emotions within us. These energies can be released in a number of ways: laughing, burping, yawning, dancing, going to the bathroom, or even, of course, throwing it up. In order to explain why we need to purge in the first place, Jerry explains it with this analogy. Imagine the following scene.
Hey, turn that music off! F you, Dad! What did you just say?
I said I love you, Dad.
Damn right.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
When this event takes place, the boy here is essentially swallowing his emotional turmoil. All of the anger and frustration from this experience is pent up and sealed away inside. And don't be mistaken, there is sealed up pain in the father too. As the boy lives his life, experiences like this happen in a number of ways. Maybe there are bullies at school, his boss yells at him, his partner cheats on him. Whatever it is, these traumatic experiences build up over time, which paves the way for all manner of life problems. While these experiences may seem like temporary events, they have long-lasting roots that dig into our subconscious, silently affecting our thought process, our decisions, and even our health throughout our lives. So what ayahuasca does is help you pull up those roots, releasing the emotional trauma that was built up within you. And as mentioned, there are a number of ways this can happen. There have been a few instances where I've heard people say things like, "Oh yeah, I was yawning for an hour straight and felt so much better afterwards." Or even, "I danced the night away and now I feel amazing." Then again, sometimes it can get pretty crazy. Personally, I've had my share of violent purging, to be certain. However, what I've learned is this: while it can sometimes be painful to go through, once that energy is out of you, healing and love quickly comes to those old wounds, and you are free from the pain forever. With all of that said, purging is only one of the 4 types of journeys. The second and third types are very connected. The second is called a pinta, which is where you begin to see visions. There's literally no limit to what you can see. Maybe it'll be swirls of light and color. People often see sacred geometry. You might even see people you know or animals you've had in your life. But if one of your visions makes contact with you and begins to talk with you, now you've moved to the third type of journey, which is called a consult, when the subject of your vision is now engaged with you in some form of communication. And now the final type of journey is extremely rare and is considered to be the most prized. It's called a nada. And what happens is that the medicine essentially puts you to sleep and you don't even seem to experience anything. The Colombian tradition believes that what is happening here is that the spirit of the medicine puts you to sleep to go deep through your ancestral lineage in your genetic history and repair trauma and huge events from your past lifetimes or those of your family bloodlines. When you come out of it, you may not have directly experienced any visions or purging, but you may suddenly find yourself knowing something new or feeling more evolved than you previously had. After these orientation talks, there is always much anticipation for the first ceremony. People are engaged in mindful conversations and thoughtful contemplations, preparing themselves for the journey to come. Soon, the day grew to evening, and the first ceremony was about to begin. People lined up in front of the maloca, ready for anything.
Tell us, how are you feeling before this first ayahuasca ceremony?
I am feeling, and that's what it is.
Pretty excited. I'm just scared. That's all I have to say. Just horrified.
Really great. Just had a cleanse and a shower and ready to get in contact with the divine.
Excellent.
I don't want to label it as excitement or nervousness or anxiety, but it's just rather ready to do it and trying to not have any expectations about what's going to happen. Just embrace it with my arms open.
No, seriously, I'm humbled. I'm nervous. I'm grateful, and I'm just ready. I'm just ready to go. Just ready to try it.
I just want to see what Aya has to show me and tell me, and connect with Mother Earth.
Do you have any intentions or thoughts or questions that you're hoping to be answered?
No, I just want to. I kind of want to just go inside myself and just see what happens.
As a rule of Rhythmia and most Aya ceremonies, this is a cell phone and camera-free environment. The shamans sometimes make a joke saying, "We're here to meet God, not meet them on Facebook." Fortunately, there's no rule against animating an ayahuasca ceremony, so get ready for some more cartoons. Throughout the week, John and I filmed short interviews with ourselves and others, and when the week was over, we took a look back to see what we had captured.
Last night was great. I had a really fun time and kind of lost in my thoughts, but in a good way. A lot of really nice positive thoughts, reflecting on a lot of things that I love, a lot of people that I love, and I was digging the music, and I felt like dancing, but it didn't really feel like it was part of the night. But when the music really came on, it was really fun to let loose.
I didn't have any feeling after the first shot until I had a first purge, which was going to the toilet. came back, and then I started feeling it. And the first thing that came to me was I was a bug, like a little bug. And then I felt like all this sensation as a bug in my body. And like, oh my God, I was looking at my hand, like a bug-like everything. It was a great feeling. And then I felt all the wind and trees and plants, other bugs, animals talking to me. And it was a pleasant feeling. And then the next thing I realized was I became an animal. I don't remember what animal I was, but I was an animal, like hairy animal. Same thing, I was talking to the nature. And then another thing happened was I became a wolf. I remember that because I saw my children, my family next to me. It's like a husky looking wolf. I was in Siberia, like looking over the like stars and like at night on the snow. And then I realized I could be anything in the nature, like anything that's living. I can be any of this. It felt so good. And I had another purge, so I had to go to the toilet, so it kind of paused, came back, lay down again, and I became my boyfriend. I was him. And it felt so good and weird and like interesting, like, oh my God. I had an exact same hand that he has. I felt just like him, and I felt how much he loves me, which sometimes we doubt, you know, like, do our parents or my partner really love me? Sometimes, like, completely cleared. And then the next thing, I was Alberto, the really, really nice dude that we met. Like, I love Alberto, and I became him. I'm like, oh my God, I even had his accent, Peruvian Spanish accent. I'm like, oh my God. And then this came to me. I am you, I'm everyone. I'm anything in the world. And if I don't like something that other people do to me, it's because I have it in me. It's just me. All the good things, all the bad things, I have everything, and I'm one, and we are all one. That's the best experience I've ever in my life. And after that, my journey ended, and I felt such a good feeling, like, this is it, I figured. Yeah, that was my best experience ever in my life.
Mother Ayahuasca, the whole time, she was just sort of trying to get me to be still. And in a lot of the ceremonies, I just didn't move at all. I just stayed very, very still and very centered. And throughout all my life, from maybe being 5 years old or so, I'd been diagnosed with really severe anxiety and also depression. I found the depression pretty easy to manage, but my anxiety for most of my life was pretty out of control. And all my thoughts would always be very aggressive and intense and just constantly repeating. And after my first ceremony of ayahuasca, I felt so still. All my whole presence and everything in my body just was in a complete stillness. I can't even describe how amazing and how beautiful it felt to truly be still for the first time in my life. And it was just so amazing to have my anxiety cured in a single night after a single ceremony. So I think I've sort of changed, and I feel the ability, I'm able to be still and be present.
It began with a deep spiritual rebirth. There was this moment where I was split into two bodies. One was a very defeated masculine boy, and one was a dead body of a female. We were put into a pot by a great being and boiled to a crazy inferno that created all of this smoke that shot up. All of the energy of residual of those two parts of myself were destroyed and alchemically reconstructed into a new body. And then a being was over me, over this new body, and blew into my nostrils the breath of life. I emerged as an awoken new creature, as a new thing, as a new human. And standing over me were actually two beings. One was Thoth, and the other was Enki. And they were smiling at me, being like, welcome. Welcome to your new life. Enki left me in Thoth's care and went off, and Thoth and I stayed together for so much of the ceremony, and he guided me to be wise.
And I also had a lot of visuals last night. Like I would take my glasses off and like things are blurry, but instead of just being blurry, those blurs would like turn into all these like really interesting geometries, which was pretty wild. And like just like I start seeing that and start just like kind of my mind would wander and start imagining all these things. And there's other visuals too last night. Like there was one point where I was laying on a hammock, kind of just in awe by the stars, and I thought I saw this like bird flying, and then it just disappeared. And what was really neat is that after I told Shane about that, he was like, hey, I was out on the hammocks the same time you were on the hammock, and I felt like I was getting attacked by a bird. So it was kind of neat to have that connection of like, I saw a bird go by and it crashed into Shane, which is pretty funny.
I had an experience where my intention was about letting go. It was about, why do I always feel the need to like do so much or hold on to things or like want to do all this stuff. And halfway through the experience, I get this sharp pain in my back and my back starts seizing up. I'm usually pretty comfortable with the medicine, but there was a point in this experience where it just kept getting worse and worse. And I felt like I needed help. And I remember saying, Jesus Christ, like my back hurts. And all of a sudden, Jesus pops into my awareness. And I'm like, wow. And he wasn't like the Jesus you would expect with like, you know, robes and like the throne crown of thorns. He was like a cool modern day Jesus. And I was like, Jesus, is that you? And he was like, yeah, you know it's me. And I'm like, what do you ask Jesus? And I was like, what's it like to be Jesus? And I'm instantly taken into this experience where I'm being crucified on a cross. And my back pain is just getting more intense. But as I'm realizing, because at first I didn't realize what was going on, but I'm realizing as I'm ascending and I'm feeling this feeling, I can see a crowd of faceless people, but I can see their energy bodies, and I could see this feeling of nothing but compassion and forgiveness. That was the only feeling, and there was zero pain. There was zero pain. As long as my awareness was on that, there was zero pain. It was about totally letting go. And that was the teaching. And so then I think, did I meet Jesus? Did I experience what he experiences? But I think maybe not, who knows? What I do know is the medicine provided me that experience that I needed to understand what I was asking for. And that was the best way it could communicate it to me. It was by having that experience and seeing it was nothing but pure love and forgiveness and compassion. And then the same night I ended up meeting John Lennon and Buddha in this wild sort of change of events, but both of them had the same message. Buddha was just like, you don't get it, just let it be. It's just about let go, it's just about being. Try to explain this in thousands of texts, it's the same thing. It's just let go. And John Lennon was like, let it be. By the end of that, we were all singing, let it be, meet Jesus and Buddha. And I was laughing. I couldn't believe what was going on. It was like a mix of like, I wasn't sure if this is my imagination or is this really happening? Or I'm like, am I creating this? Is this like a part of my imagination? And what I came to the conclusion was, it's all part of this learning that I needed to have. It was creating that experience that would be most impactful and memorable for me, right?
So was after that whole thing, did your back still hurt?
No, oh, that was totally gone. Like yeah, no back pain at all. It was like, by the end of it, it was gone. Like, as soon as I started realizing what the teaching was, right? Where I was probably holding on to something before that. Oh, it was interesting.
It was a profound experience being here. I thought it was a vacation. I'm very, very overworked at work. And I said, I'm just gonna take a nice vacation in Costa Rica and relax. So when I got here, it was amazing. Everything was beautiful. I was feeling better already. And I was so excited to go in my first ayahuasca ceremony. So wrong. It is not a vacation, but it's so much better than a vacation. My first experience was terrifying, but I learned so much. My second experience was one of the most profound and mystical experiences of my life. I went past my comfort zone and I kept hearing the message say, you know, go to what's hard, don't go to what's easy. The universe rewards bravery. So I went up for a second drink and I knew that that was the thing I had to do, but I was so scared and so like weak. But I crawled and I knew I had to do it. I just crawled and I found my courage and I stood up in front of the shaman and I'm like, hey, guess what? You know, I'm not afraid anymore. And he looked at me and he goes, happy birthday. And he gave me my other drink. And I drank that and I thought that this has to be the cap of my experience. But it wasn't. It wasn't. It was a whirlwind of like ego beating, throughout the rest of the ceremonies, I learned so much about humanity and what drives humanity and what exactly the earthly plane is. And on the last day was the purging day. I was a bit scared, but I knew I could handle it. I was kind of sick of really bad, like scary, intense experiences that I said I just want to have fun. And so I took the thing, and I didn't purge for a long time until the shamans dusted me off with feathers in a circle, and all of a sudden I could feel myself dying. I became so enraptured in everything all at once. It was so surreal. I couldn't stop it, because usually before I just opened my eyes, but I couldn't open my eyes, and everything was just death and dying. I fell to the floor softly, and then all of a sudden I started thrashing my legs around. They had to carry me out, and I didn't know what was happening at first. But then, I don't know what happened, but I was pinned to the ground, not by anyone, but by my imagination. And I started seeing through lights and lights and lights and lights, and my whole body turned to energy. And lights were everywhere, and I could feel someone orchestrating, like a shaman, a particular shaman, orchestrating my whole experience. And I felt my body being renewed at that time, which was amazing, and everything collapsing, expanding, collapsing, expanding, collapsing, expanding, and then going from one consciousness to the next, and every single answer in the universe was being revealed to me. One by one, I flipped over, another answer, flip over, another answer, flip over, another answer, and then everything was just connected, and everything had an order, and everything had a reason, and I knew that everything was connected. Nothing happened by accident. I was so certain about that, and I could feel all this love around me. That was me. And I could also feel like the shaman and his love, like guiding the whole process. So it was more like feeling of safety that I could experience this for myself. And when I woke up, I just felt whole, like completely whole and certain that I've ever felt in my life.
On plant medicine, on ayahuasca, I think the most amazing thing I've ever seen is the Castle of Divinity. It started out as a snake, and it turned into a woman that her beauty transcends description. And then from that, it turned into a palace. And in that, while looking at that palace, it showed how life works. A part of it was focused on the earth, and it was focused at the smallest minutia. And you could see people hating each other, and then it went up maybe 10,000 feet, and then it looked a little different. And it keeps, the further you get away from it, the more peaceful it becomes. And it might look crazy, but it's perfectly orchestrated like an ant colony. I can't hurt you without hurting me, and I can't help you without helping me. And that the overriding glue that holds the whole thing together is love. Even though it can look like so many different things, even anger is a shade of love. And how there's this one soul that we're all from, and that anything that happens to us is even beyond good or evil. It's of this divine order. And even though it doesn't look, and I hate to talk like this because it seems fragmented and shit, but even the worst, most horrendous crimes are still under the arc of love. It's crazy to understand, and we're all playing our part, and it's up to us to decide when we no longer want to play the part that we were playing. We want to play something different, yeah. And then we move that, and then someone else moves into our. It's this crazy thing, dude.
After the whole week of experiences, we were amazed by the transformation that we saw take place. With every person we talked to, we heard stories like these, and were left in awe of the beauty and majesty of what had been created there in just 1 week. Throughout the week, we also made it a point to interview some of the Rhythmia staff and ask them about the nature of the work that they do there.
when somebody remerges with their soul, the change in their affect and the way that they're being is priceless. And I get to see that 60, 100 times a week. And to that person, it's the single most important story in the world. And that's why we treat each one of these people as if it were ourselves, yeah. Because once you do the medicine, you see that it is you. And it's easier to do that. It's easier to treat that person as an extension of yourself. And that's this whole place. What people say, when they leave, they say, oh yeah, it was a pretty place and all that. But the real thing was the way that they were held while they were here.
So the breathwork and the plant medicine make a really good team. The breathwork can really help in a gentle way open us up to start feeling some of our feelings that maybe we've tucked away for a while, like maybe decades. And then introducing us into the plant medicine where things can get a little bit more intense. And then using the breath work through your plant medicine ceremonies to really keep you calm and keep you centered. So when things get a little bit crazy, a little bit intense, a lot of things are coming up in the plant medicine, always returning to your breath to keep you in a calm, grounded place. And then we also like to end the week of ceremonies here with a more intense breathwork session. And it's amazing how it can really tie up loose ends for us. So things that have happened during ceremony and maybe there's a little bit of confusion or maybe a little loose ends, and the breathwork can help to pull that together. And it can also help you take some of those experiences back home. So it's a tool that you can use every day at home.
The late, great Terrence McKenna, he likes to say that the shaman is a mixture of the doctor, the scientist, and the artist. Somebody who has put themselves through healing and has gone through those situations and has done the medicine enough to that they can show that to other people as well. And there's a lot of shamans out there. If somebody has an inkling in their heart that they're a truth seeker, knowing that they're not alone in this world, never, then there is a path for them. And the medicine really wakes us up to that, the shaman within.
The most amazing thing is the ceremony, and it's always just seeing all the love and the healing. It's always that. There's nothing more than that. It's just, I'm always blown away by just the pure love and the connection and the energy and the healing that provides for everybody.
If you look around and you look at the nature of the trees, everything it's in perfect order. It's always in perfect harmony, right? But us as humans, somewhere along the line, like we got out of that harmony through going to school and learning about having a career and this and that. But like if you go to the jungle and you see how they live, like they live one with nature, they live in harmony. Right? So the medicine is helping us to remember that us too, as humans, we're nature. And it's in bringing us back to that harmony.
At the end of the week, there is a closing group workshop designed around the process of reintegration. After entering such a high vibrational state, going back into the world you came from can be a little challenging. Fortunately, Rhythmia provides excellent support for the people going back to their homes and their lives.
There is this adjustment period and how it works. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the moon told me, so I said to her, I said, well, why did I feel like I didn't think I wasn't sure if I got it here. And then when I was over here, I got this feeling that I got it. And she said it comes down to worthiness. That in the first, after you get it, there's this worthiness thing that you go through, that am I worthy to hold this? And I asked her, I said, how long does it last? And she said, you can't undo it. You can only re-screw it. You can't undo the connection. You can only screw it up again. And she also said that at last, if you keep this clean, that even death does not take it away from you.
When you take the medicine, you may come out with a deeper knowing about the importance of meditation, eating well, daily spiritual practice, and things like this. Going back to the world, it's important to keep up our spiritual efforts in order to maintain our higher vibration. Otherwise, it's possible to fall back to a denser state of being with poor habits or being unengaged with yourself and your life. However, even despite this, after just 1 week of these ceremonies, we hear overall that there is more faith, more knowing, and more connectedness than ever before. Even if some old habits return, which is entirely on us, There is this deep knowing that everything that happens in our lives is all a part of some bigger picture. And in this way, we learn what it truly means to be connected to everything.
That society screaming for somebody to see the truth, capital T, truth. So instead of getting entrenched in it, we try to see possibilities. Then, as you just said, we ask, what is it that's mine to do that will alleviate suffering? And so everyone here can't do the same thing because everyone has different gifts. Everyone can't do everything, but everyone can do something. So we have to ask, what does my gift allow me to do? You pull out from the undertow. You hold a high space, and then you ask, what is it that's mine to do? And as an artist, that's what you have to do. You have to speak of possibility. You have to speak of vision. You have to speak of purpose. You have to speak of the next stage, the answer that's trying to happen. One by one, two by two, we come together to create that field for the emergence of the next stage.
After we returned home from Rhythmia, a week later, I invited John to the office and asked him a couple of in-closing questions.
Ending with the sun coming up was a surreal experience, but I think having such a long night and, you know, really having the medicine kind of compile over the few days inside of me, like I was super introspective. Like I felt like every night there was more and more visuals. So I was seeing like lots of really interesting patterns, lots of colors on things, and like just kind of taking a new look on things and really coming to terms with some things. And I would say not even just the fourth night, but the fourth night capped it off. But I do feel like after all of that, I'm a better person. After this experience, made me really sort everything out in my head, you know, like if there's anything I was kind of doubting about maybe what I want to do in the future, and you know, I mentioned already what makes me happy, it really kind of sorted it out. It put things in a very clear lens. So I kind of really sure about what I want to do and like just how I want to live my life, and just, yeah, I think that's probably the best way to put it. It really helps put things in perspective. Yeah, it really, like, it's like a jam-packed mega reflection therapy session on your brain and stuff. Is wild, man. And the visuals, yeah.
As for me, when I came home, I found that my evolution experience was only just beginning. There was a shift within me. For so long, I'd been playing the role of a kid who makes videos on the internet. It was a role I'd been playing for so many years now. That was my comfort zone. But after this trip to Rhythmia, the professional within me came alive. I realized that in order to truly live my dreams of having a large video production studio and creating spirit centers across the world, it was time for me to step up into a higher place of leadership and responsibility in my life. With this newfound evolution, the people in my life began to change too. I naturally began to attract other conscious and spiritual experts who could help me grow and take spirit science to the next level. At the end of the day, this was the evolution I experienced, and it's still going on even as I make this movie. But really, one of the most humbling lessons I've learned above all else is that it's not about me. It's about all of us learning and growing together, healing together, and a massive change for all of humanity.
We're not doing this for the same thing that motivates most people to start a business, right? So our initial motivation is different. Because of that, growth is not a real high priority to me. I want to always get better at what we're doing, you know? So if it gets a little bigger, it gets a little bigger. What I'd really like to have happen is it to become a huge success. And so other people open them up, not me, so that other people open them up all over the world. That this thing does so well, and when I say so well, I do mean financially, but I also mean that the healings that occur are so deep and so many that people in conventional medicine and government has to say, look at this, look what happened here, and then starts a movement away from traditional healing centers, more to centers like this, where they're not just giving you a pill to not have a headache for a day, but removing that headache for the rest of your life. Like this is real. This is really real.
One of the most memorable things is there was a woman who was purging a lot, And then after she was done purging, I was there for her, got her some tissue, give her a sip of water, and then she wanted to go out and watch the stars, you know, be outside, so I helped her outside. And then she stopped and looked outside like it was the first time she's ever seen the world. And then she told me, she said, I just purged out my cancer. And then after she went home, she ended up going to the doctor and, you know, the cancer was gone. And then she still comes back and she still does more work because there's always more healing to do. You know, the medicine isn't just a doctor, but she is a teacher. And there's always more healing, revealing, you know, getting back to who we truly are.
The importance of plant medicine is that we're moving into union with a consciousness, with an energy and a union that we have lost, right? In 1850, Wordsworth writes, "The world is too much with us, getting and spending late and soon we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon." Right? This is the connectivity that the plant provides us. We get back into the connections and rhythms of life and nature. We see the truth of something beyond what we see with the eyes and ears. You know, what Reverend Micah would say, we see the invisible. We hear the inaudible. And it allows us to do the impossible. Right? That's really the connection of plant medicine.
In the simplest form, I think most people are run by their subconscious mind. And most people are in a fight and flight state most of the time because of society, because of, you know, work, the way we're brought up, and we're so lost. And when you have an ayahuasca experience, it peels back all these layers at once. So you can really see the true essence of yourself and what's really important. And it gives you that opportunity to then make changes. Ayahuasca is not going to change your life by itself. It'll give you the opportunity to change your life. It'll present that opportunity to you. And a place like this gives you all those other support mechanisms, the cleanses, the classes, the breath work to really give you that push and opportunity to make those changes. And then it's up to you, you know, the lessons that you learned, how you can integrate that into your daily life now, once you step off this place. And there's also amazing tools that really provides for that too. But the ayahuasca in general will do that. It makes you really want to support nature, to give back, to sort of connect with people. And that's what's gonna make the world a better place, people opening to that awareness of what their true nature is and who they really are. And the more people that can do that, it's happening. Like ayahuasca is spreading across the world right now. Plant medicine is coming into the awareness because I think the planet is raising the vibration saying, hey, we need to sort of wake up here because we can change things like that. If everyone is on board saying, hey, let's change the way we operate, let's change the way we treat each other and the planet. And I think ayahuasca is one of the greatest opportunities as a catalyst for change.
Yeah, I straight up believe that like anyone would benefit from going to Rhythmia. Or at least doing ayahuasca, having that kind of ceremony. And I think it's super important that it's in the right setting and you have the right people, you know, the right shamans or caretakers helping you through the experience. But I think anyone would help from therapy, and I kind of see it the same way, but it's like almost like super therapy. So I think the world should do ayahuasca.
So, where do we go from here? Rhythmia is available to you right now. If you're ready for this, click the link in the description and take action now. When you take action, you pave the way for the whole world to heal. And that's real. Your own shift and healing has an enormous effect on global consciousness. Ayahuasca has made that clear. That's how connected we truly are. Now, you might be thinking, I can't afford it. And if that's the case right now, it's okay. Let me show you how you can, because the key is within you. Instead of saying, I can't afford it, which is limiting, ask yourself, how can I afford it? Which opens the door of possibility for your own energy. Have faith and be patient. Rhythmia is a part of a much bigger picture for all of us. And if you set your intention to make it happen, there's nothing that can stop you. I've met people of all walks of life at Rhythmia. There was even a 19-year-old pizza delivery boy who saved up his money for several months to go, and he said it was the best decision he'd ever made. So I stand with Jerry in hopes and dreams that one day, places like Rhythmia will exist all over the world in abundance, and the world leaders with power over social systems will see the value without question. I mean, really, what would happen if these guys were to try it?
Before I came here, my sisters never let me touch them. I would always kind of try and hug them, they'd be like, go away. And like coming here, by the second day, I received the most hugs I've gotten from them in as long as I can remember.
It was almost what they call a nada. There was not much happening, but there was a lot happening. I could feel that the medicine was working. There was a few subtle visions and things like that that was helping me to see a little bit deeper into the fabric of who I am and what's been going on. But at the same time, it was more about being able to be present to the gratitude of life in general, just being open to love, open to gratitude, open to grace, open to bliss. At the end of the night, there was like sort of like a purge that, and I asked what that purge was for, and it was just to purge those toxins from my system that are not serving me or my life. And today I actually feel clearer, even though I didn't get a lot of sleep or anything like that, but I feel more clear in my being, which is pretty awesome, considering that, you know, I never would have anticipated something so simple to have such an interesting effect on the following day's consciousness and feeling and that sort of stuff. So day one was pretty cool. I'm very grateful and humbled. I asked for gentle and I got gentle. So
we as a species we're coming now into glimpsing, like so many people have started to receive similar things throughout their ceremonies, but we're starting to come to a point where we're receiving this deeper understanding about how everything works. You know, we have this perspective through science and through our religions and stuff of the way that the heavens and the world and the universe operates. But it's so much more intricate and magical than we can possibly understand at this point. But through experiences like this, through deep meditation, through plant medicine ceremonies, we're starting to get glimpses of something bigger, something beyond, and activate our DNA. And with this higher activation, it turns on something within us. It changes us to be able to see and know and receive higher truths beyond anything we've been able to know in the last 13,000 years. And that's so amazing.